Welcome back to the Calabash Diaries, where we open the Calabash to uncover Africa's greatest kingdoms and their hidden legacies. Today, we journey into the kingdom of Ghana, a realm of gold, power, and mystery that thrived over 1,000 years ago in West Africa. Long before the modern nation of Ghana existed, this empire commanded trade routes, dazzled travelers with its wealth, and inspired legends across the Sahara. Yet its story is not just about riches, it is about resilience, migration, and cultural brilliance that shaped the very foundations of West African identity. The Kingdom of Ghana, also known as Ouagadougou, traces its roots to the Soninke people. Oral traditions tell us that the Soninke migrated from the Nile Valley westward, following climate shifts and searching for fertile lands. By around the 5th century CE, they settled between the Senegal and Niger rivers, in a land rich in resources. Archaeological studies suggest these Soninke communities mastered iron smelting and desert farming techniques earlier than once believed. Some evidence even hints that they carried with them Nile Valley agricultural knowledge, linking them to older Saharan civilizations lost to desertification. This means the ancestors of Ghana were not just wanderers, but carriers of ancient African scientific traditions. The Soninke clans eventually formed a confederation of settlements known as Ouagadougou. The name itself means land of herds, reflecting their cattle wealth. Oral tradition credits a legendary blacksmith hunter named Dinga Sisse, who migrated from the east, with uniting the clans under one ruler. By the 8th century, Ghana emerged as a true empire. Its capital, Kumbi Saleh, became one of the richest cities in Africa. Ghana's kings, known as the Ghana, meaning war chief, controlled trade routes that stretched across the Sahara, linking West Africa to North Africa and the Mediterranean. The very first ruler of ancient Ghana, according to oral traditions, was Dinga Sisse, a semi-mythical leader believed to have migrated from the east with his people. He united small Soninke clans into a single federation, laying the foundation of Ghana. Oral histories describe him as a man with mystical powers, able to communicate with serpents and control the rain. Though historians debate his historicity, his legend remains a cornerstone of Ghana's identity. Fun fact: in Soninke mythology, Dinga Sisse's descendants possess supernatural powers connected to iron and rainfall. This association reveals how metallurgy and spiritual authority were fused. Rulers were not just kings, they were believed to control nature itself, a powerful symbol for a people living on the edge of the desert. Accounts from Arab travelers like al-Bakri describe Kumbi Saleh as having two cities, one for the king and his court, filled with gold and grandeur, and another for Muslim merchants, filled with mosques and bustling trade. Yet archaeology suggests these cities were even larger than reported, possibly holding tens of thousands of residents, a scale rivaling medieval European capitals. The Ghana Empire had a centralized monarchy, where the king held absolute authority. He was believed to be semi-divine, descending from the Soninke's sacred lineage. Beneath him were governors who ruled provinces and chiefs who managed villages. Fun fact: the king's power was reinforced by an elaborate ritual. He was rarely seen in public, and when he appeared, he sat in splendor surrounded by 10 horses draped in gold cloth. Subjects prostrated themselves, sprinkling dust on their heads as a sign of respect. This wasn't just a ceremony, it was a political theater that reinforced his sacred authority. The Soninke people practiced a traditional religion centered on ancestral spirits and nature gods. The king acted as a spiritual mediator, ensuring balance with the divine. Over time, Islam entered Ghana through trade, but it existed side by side with traditional beliefs. The Soninke were famed for their storytelling griots, oral historians who preserved lineages, victories, and laws through song. Many griot families trace their origins directly back to Ghana, meaning that the empire's memory literally lived in the voices of its people, not in written texts. Ghana's true strength lay in its control of the gold and salt trade. Gold came from the forests of Wangara in the south, while salt was mined in the Sahara. These two resources were so valuable that Arab merchants called Ghana the land of gold. The empire taxed every ounce of gold and every load of salt that passed through its borders. Some historians believe that Ghana's kings held the largest gold reserves in the medieval world, so much so that Islamic writers once thought the king's dogs wore golden collars and slept on cushions stuffed with gold dust. While most sources describe Ghana as a gold kingdom, deeper oral traditions suggest that it also pioneered desert irrigation systems using underground channels similar to Persia's qanats. This could explain how they supported such large cities in semi-arid lands. The Kingdom of Ghana was often called the land of gold and iron. Its strength rested not only in its wealth, but also in its military power. The Ghanaian army was organized with a core force of 200,000 men, with around 40,000 archers armed with bows strung with sinew and tipped with iron arrows. Cavalry units were the pride of the kingdom. Horses, imported from North Africa, gave Ghanaian warriors a height advantage in battle. Oral tradition says that before every battle, Ghanaian blacksmiths performed a ritual of fire and iron, blessing the spears and swords with protective chants believed to connect warriors to the ancestors. While the empire's kings are often remembered, oral history in the savannah whispers of Princess Abla Poku, a fierce warrior believed to have lived during the height of Ghana's influence. Born into a royal family, her birth was accompanied by griot's predictions that she would carry the weight of nations on her shoulders. Unlike most princesses, she trained with the cavalry and mastered the bow. Her military genius was tested during raids from the Almoravids. She led an all-female battalion called the Mothers of Fire, who were feared for their precision archery and ability to fight from horseback. Though later generations mixed her legend with the Akan migrations, she symbolizes the hidden stories of women who fought not just with swords, but with spirit. Though occurring much later in Ashanti history, 1900, the War of the Golden Stool is often tied back to the spiritual heritage of ancient Ghana. Oral tradition links the sacred stool's power to the ancestral spirits of the Soninke kings. The stool was said to descend from the heavens, carrying the souls of the people. When the British demanded to sit on it, Queen Ya Asantewa rose, another female warrior, echoing the spirit of Princess Abla Poku. She declared, "If you, men of Ashanti, will not go forward, then we will. We, the women, will fight." Her resistance connected the golden age of Ghana to the later Ashanti struggle, showing how warrior queens carried the flame of independence across centuries. Unknown fact: some descendants of Ghanaian warriors were taken across the Atlantic, carrying with them songs, drum rhythms, and spiritual practices that still survive in the Americas today, hidden inside blues, gospel, and Caribbean drumming tradition. The Soninke warriors were known for their sacred war drums, which were believed to summon ancestral spirits into battle. The sound of these drums was said to terrify enemies and inspire Ghana's soldiers with supernatural courage. By the 11th century, the Kingdom of Ghana stood as a wealthy giant, controlling the gold and salt trade across the Sahara. Its cities, such as Kumbi Saleh, bustled with merchants, mosques, royal palaces, and markets filled with textiles, salt slabs and ivory. But wealth attracts envy. The Almoravids, a strict Islamic reformist movement from the deserts of North Africa, rose with both religious zeal and military ambition. They were Berber warriors from the Western Sahara, united by the teachings of Ibn Yasin, who preached purity of Islam and obedience to Allah. They saw Ghana not just as a rich kingdom, but as a land of pagan rulers whose gold could fund their holy war. In 1076 AD, the Almoravids launched their invasion. They swept across the Sahara with camel cavalry, archers, and shock troops. Their sudden raids destabilized trade, cutting Ghana off from key routes. Oral tradition suggests that the Almoravids burned parts of Kumbi Saleh, forcing merchants to flee and creating panic in the capital. But their conquest was not complete domination. The Almoravids could not fully govern Ghana's vast territory. Instead, their pressure weakened Ghana's grip on its provinces and trade monopolies. Fun fact: griots say that during the invasion, Ghanaian priests buried sacred iron swords in the sand, swearing that one day the descendants of Ghana would dig them up when it was time to reclaim their glory. The Almoravid raids alone did not bring Ghana down. It was the fracturing from within that finally shattered the empire. Ghana's strength lay in its federation of Soninke clans and subject peoples, but once its central power weakened, many groups rose up. People once loyal to Ghana began to question why they should send tribute when the empire could no longer protect trade routes. Towns on the edge of the empire stopped paying taxes, cutting off resources from the king's treasury. By the 11th century, many merchants and towns within Ghana had converted to Islam, especially in northern trade hubs. But Ghana's kings continued their traditional Soninke spiritual practices, rooted in ancestor worship and sacred kingship. This created tension between the Muslim traders and the traditional rulers, fracturing unity within the kingdom. In the southeast, the Soso people broke away, establishing their own dominance in the vacuum left by Ghana's decline. Oral tradition remembers the Soso king, Sumanguru Kante, as a ruthless figure who later clashed with the Mali Empire's founders. These rebellions stripped Ghana of its outer territories, shrinking it from a mighty empire into a fragile core. By the late 12th century, Ghana was only a shadow of its former self. Drought hit the Sahel, drying rivers and weakening agriculture. Without the stability of Ghana's military, trade shifted eastward, where the rising Mali Empire would take center stage under Sundiata Keita. Its people were scattered into successor states like Mali and Songhai. Yet the slave trade would devastate these communities. Warriors who once guarded trade routes became captives themselves, as North African traders and later European merchants exploited internal conflicts. The once mighty Ghana, which Arab writers called the Land of Gold, dissolved into memory, its legacy carried forward by griots, oral tradition, and the kingdoms that followed. Although the empire itself fell, its legacy endures. The modern nation of Ghana adopted its name in honor of this ancient empire. The Soninke people still live across Mali, Senegal, and Mauritania, preserving traditions of kingship, griots, and goldsmithing. The Soninke diaspora today is known for preserving ancient marriage customs and initiation rites believed to date back to the empire. Their oral history has kept alive the memory of Ghana, making it one of the few ancient empires still vividly remembered in African communities. The Kingdom of Ghana was not just a land of gold, it was a land of vision, strength, and resilience. It showed the world that African empires thrived long before colonialism, shaping global trade and culture. Its memory echoes in griot songs, in modern Ghana's name, and in the spirit of the Soninke people who still walk the Sahel today.
Welcome back to the Calabash
This
Diaries.
has been the Calabash Diaries. Until next time, may your roots run deep and your stories run true.